Welcome everyone to the first video talking explicitly about the Mastermind option. As you can see, we are using my new published master sheet with the new cheat sheet with the tier list of the Mastermind options last updated today. I have ranked the 9 Mastermind options you are able to play in competitive here. And I want to give you some insights on why I ranked them like this, and maybe as well because I stated this in the stream, I don't really like the Mastermind options, and I want to give you an insight about why I don't really like them. First of all, just a general thing, I don't really like these Mastermind options for one big thing. It seems to me that it is a huge rock, paper, scissors system. You have those early game spells, you do have those late game spells, and you do have those mixed strategies spells. The problem is that some are just theoretically beating others, and on top of this, your role does matter even more based on your Mastermind option. If you have greed, you get 5 income, fine, right? You can play for early game, you can play for late game, no matter what, because you always have those 5 income, and then you can play based on your role. But for example, if you have a castle role, you kind of want to have a nice early game where you don't fall too far behind. But you know, your scaling is going to be after 10, so you want a long-lasting game in the best case, if it's like even up until then. Plus, you do want some scaling units. You can actually make a benefit in late and mid game. Same is for cartel, where you want to have a high-pressure early game, a lot of low-cost units to snowball in worker especially, to have this insane lead by wave 10 where you get this huge mines income. And if you have either of those, for example, castle, you don't get a nice scaling spell role, or cartel, you don't really get a lot of early game units, you're kind of trapped in your role. And this is something I feel like there's a lot too much RNG in the game brought by those Mastermind options. One thing that is helping, I think it's not reducing, or it's not gonna get rid of all those problems, but one thing that could happen is you see your role and then you decide on what Mastermind option you're playing. This would at least benefit you from, okay, I have a late game role, I might want to play castle, or I have insane early game, I want to play cartel. My role is okay, I might just play greed or whatever. But now let's get into my tier list. You can see here the first 2 spells are the 2 examples I just used, castle and cartel. Personally, I feel like they're almost the same level, even though I would probably put castle at the top one. Thing is, they're both quite viable. It depends a lot on what type of a player you are. And personally, I'm always deciding based on what legion spells there are. There's just some legion spells, for example, a hero spell that is a lot more worth it in the late game. So I try to play maybe castle and get some scaling unit. Cartel, I described it before as well. You do have those early game units you want to concentrate on. You want 5 worker openers, you want to be 7 workers after 3 in the best case. You want to have 8 workers by 5 or more. So I've had games where I had 10 workers pre-5. I mean, this is insane, right? You just want to scale, you want to overgreed. You want to get this insane benefit in workers, because you will have reduced income after 10, but if you have this worker lead compared to your opponents, you will gain back this income super fast. Problems I can see with both of those spells is castle. Obviously you can get out-pushed, out-rolled, outsmarted in the early game, and then you only get 40 income. So if you have a good early game role with a good spell that's fitting to an early game role, it's easy to get those 40 income on top of you anyway, and then your spells just +0 equal to their actual playstyle. Cartel, if you get a very late game oriented role, it's quite hard to pop off that much in the early game. Plus the fact that if you're getting starved, you can't push that much and you will get punished for it after 10. Second level is going to be greed. I mean, greed is still super vanilla, it's super basic, but it's still very strong, I think. I started to play a lot more greed lately because I feel like this rock, paper, scissors system just didn't match overall often in solo queue. By the way, this tier list is based on solo queue. I think In competitive play, where you play in teams 2v2, some adjustments could be made that, for example, castle's being played, but then you want something to back it up and take, for example, redraw, whatever. So on the second level, we have greed and chaos. Chaos is some coin flip. You do have those rolls where you hit every time a unit you need, right? You have a strong early game. You do hit those slots where you need some protection in the early game. Bam, you have those scaling units. You have those boars with Millenniums, APS, or those Halos with Leviathans and boars. You have those gates with Ocean Templars. You do have there's a lot of scaling combos out there. Most of them are based on some auras, which is always important. But in Chaos, you do have the chance to get all of those units, but they have to come in the right time, right? In the early game, when you dare get all the units you would like to have in a late game for scaling, and then you don't get them for 10 waves straight, well, this sucks and you're just gonna have an awful roll. While if everything's hitting, it's by far the best spell. So Chaos is the most up and down spell, I think, but it is still overall very strong because you have the chance to hit every unit, you have the chance to always get what you need in theory. This is why it's for me ranked number 2. You have 6 income, which is quite nice, coming good, a bit more than greed, so allowing you some more options in the early game. Probably one a lot of people might hate me for is a redraw in the middle position. I think redraw is actually a bit underrated. Obviously, you're not gonna pop off that hard because of only 3 starting income, but here comes the game changer. Redraw to me feels like is it the low budget? But it's more like I can't really say, like, redraw is the chaos with a lot less RNG. I just see, by the way, that the coloring here is not perfect. I will change that later. Sorry for that. But yeah, redraw just seems to me like the chaos with less RNG but less potential, but overall a lot more safe, and therefore a pretty good and basic spell that is probably worth to take it, but not gonna pop off as hard in the most cases as the ones above. On 4th position, there's 3 once again. We have Lock-in. I think you don't really have to say a lot about it. I think it's a bad spell, but it is still not the worst. As we can see, we have YOLO, which is actually something we should talk about because I think YOLO is definitely not worth it. You have 7 income. You get a total random roll, which you could coin flip, but this is like 15% of the cases where you get like a really good roll. And then as you reroll, you're gonna lose this 1 income, and then you're staying at 6. So you're only 1 above greed again. You're having the same like chaos. You have most likely a bad roll. So I think YOLO is definitely not worth it at the moment. With this -1 income reduction, and therefore I'm probably never going to play it like this. And I actually wonder how people are still playing it competitively. But I think there are some worse spells. Cash Out. I had to decide between 4 and 5 with Cash Out, because Cash Out does have this one option, which is Bone Crusher Start, because it most likely lets you go 6 workers with it. For example, Bone Crusher Cat, Bone Crusher Gargoyle will very likely let you go 6 worker opener, and therefore you do have a small advantage in the early game, but everything else it's not too great. So you can do LED opener, obviously, you can Avenger opener, you can Boar opener, you can Gate opener. But then you're having a tier 6 unit, you do have 2 workers only, so you don't really have a push out of it. And most of those units I just named have a significant weak wave in the early game. So you do have LED on 4, you have Boar on 4, you have Gate on 3 and 4, probably more on 3, Boar on 5, Boar on 6, so those 2 6 units are very weak in the early game, plus the fact you're starting with 2 workers, so it's not really giving you a huge benefit. Therefore, Cash Out, well, you do have this one hit chance of a Bone Crusher. I don't know if there's other units, maybe a Cat itself that might be alright to hit. Maybe even an Aqua Spirit might help you to push quite aggressive, at least in the early game. But then as you get this Hermit, you're probably getting punished hard. And by far the worst spell I can say is Fiesta. Fiesta for me just seems to be the allowance to suicide, which is usually even more than a coin flip because first of all, you have to get a reliable role where you can underbuild in the early game and only league small, which is very hard to do. I think Consort is a prime example there. If you're building a Consort, you don't get a Ascend, you still league 2 creeps on wave 1, great, +4 income, nice. But since you're starting with 0 income, you have to league at least twice to make a benefit compared to most of the other cartel spells. But then you still to the other Mastermind options, sorry, not cartel spells. But then on top, you will lose gold based on the league. You can league pretty big if you are getting caught while doing so, and then you still don't really have a huge benefit. So you basically have to league 3 or 4 times within like the first 7 waves to really make a benefit. And on top of this, your opponent can make you league as big that your mate is either not covering you, he might need protection himself, or whatever. So I just think this is not a spell you should play, especially not in solo queue where you're playing with a random teammate. It can work out pretty good, but it's 100% relying on the roll, plus it's a lot of mind games involved, which is, in my eyes, probably a lot of fun to try, but it's definitely nothing you should play competitive. Alright, I think we talked a lot about it. I hope you can understand my points. I hope you can see some difficulties I have with those Mastermind options, and maybe you see some potential I don't see, and I would be happy to hear about it. Once again, sorry for the wrong coloring. I think if you just look at the numbers in the front, this should be alright. Yeah, I hope you liked it. Oops. And yeah, maybe just state your opinion, your ranking of the spells. What's your favorite one in the comments down below? And just check out the master sheet as you want. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.